What seems to be troubling you, my child? Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. I'm here to make a confession. I'm putting non-original parts in my milsurps, which doesn't detract from their value since I still have the original parts, but the devil just keeps tempting me. I'm wanting to cut the stock on my G43. Well, all is forgiven. Just say 10 Hail Marys, and might I give you a suggestion to stave off temptation? Sometimes you just need to be a little stronger than the devil and be more prepared. The devil's number is 666. May I suggest you be 20 more and have a 686?
Welcome to the Milsurp Mike channel. Today I continue my recent revolver kick and bring you the Smith & Wesson 686-6. There's no way that I could review the Ruger GP100 and not bring you a video on its main competition from Smith & Wesson. Before I talk about my particular revolver, I want to jump back and go over the history of the 357 Magnum in general, since I haven't said much about the actual round in this set of videos. When looking at the history of the development of any round that has Magnum in its description, you can usually find outdoorsman and wildcatter Elmer Keith somewhere in the picture. The late 20s and early 30s saw a desire by law enforcement for a pistol round that could penetrate car doors and defeat bulletproof vests that were worn by criminals, since .38 Special wasn't getting the job done since it fired most rounds at under 1,000 feet per second. Colt produced the .38 Super, shooting a 130 grain bullet at 1,280 feet per second from the 1911 platform. But most law enforcement agencies were still geared toward revolvers. Smith & Wesson had an in-frame target revolver that was .38-44, a hot-loaded .38 Special that shot a projectile at 1,125 feet per second from a frame built for a .44 Special. Thanks to the beefed-up revolver, Elmer Keith and Philip Sharp separately worked on souping up the .38 Special, making cartridges that shot 158 grain projectiles at 1,400 feet per second. Keith's interest in the .38 caliber cartridges waned as he went on to soup up another caliber cartridge to create a Magnum cartridge that nobody's ever heard of. Phil Sharp, along with Douglas Wesson, continued work on the new .38 caliber cartridge and created the 357 Magnum. 357 is the true bullet diameter for the .38 Special, the latter retaining its nomenclature from the black powder days when heeled bullets were used. The case was lengthened so one wouldn't accidentally put this new cartridge into a revolver chambered only for .38 Special. Sharp and Wesson's cartridge used Elmer Keith's style bullet, which put more of the mass of the bullet outside the case, allowing room for more powder, as well as employing the me-plat, or flat nose of the 357 bullet. The cartridge was completed in 1934, and Smith & Wesson introduced the companion revolver a year later, with J. Edgar Hoover receiving the first 357 Magnum revolver on April 8, 1935. The new revolver was used by law enforcement and sports shooters alike, with law enforcement receiving what was called the registered Magnum until 1939. These are very collectible. Smith & Wesson discontinued the 357 Magnum revolver in December 1940 as they geared production towards M&P revolvers for the British war effort. They started up production of the 357 Magnum again after the war. Smith instituted a numbering system in 1957, and the in-frame 357 Magnum became the Model 27, with the more cost-effective highway patrolman model, the Model 28. Smith worked on making a lighter revolver that could shoot 357 Magnum, beefing up its K-frame. This became the Model 19 and was introduced in 1957, with the stainless steel version, the Model 66, introduced in 1971. Here's where we get into what I talked about in the GP100 video. For K-frame sightless revolvers fed a steady diet of 357 Magnum ammo would wear much quicker than if shooting .38 Special, and it was recommended that only one round of 357 Mag be fired for every 20 .38 Special. There was a desire for something K-frame sized with the strength of the N-frame. Smith & Wesson designed the L-frame, which is a beefed up K-frame with a larger cylinder to allow more metal around each chamber. This was released as the carbon steel 586 and stainless steel 686 in 1980. This has come in many different variants over the years, with improved models receiving a quote-unquote dash. Mine is the 686-6. Not all the so-called improvements are actually improvements, and here's where I get into some of Smith & Wesson's most controversial actions, which resulted in the Hillary hole. Hillary hole. Hillary hole. I'm going to make a history video in the future that will further go into the details, but in short, Smith & Wesson signed an agreement with Bill Clinton's HUD on March 17, 2000, where they would invest in smart gun technology, add internal locking devices to all firearms produced, not develop more firearms that could take pre-ban more than 10-round magazines, enforce a code of conduct on their distributors, in exchange for HUD getting cities to back off on lawsuits against Smith & Wesson. Many distributors balked at the code of conduct and dropped Smith. Although there were calls from boycotts from 2A organizations, what really brought this agreement to light was when the Safety Hammer Corporation bought Smith & Wesson and started installing the internal lock of their design onto Smith's firearms. This obvious change made general gun owners who weren't politically aware of this agreement, and this became disaffectionately known as the Hillary hole.
Alright, so basically how the safety lock works, or not so affectionately known as the Hillary hole works, there's this little lock up here right above the cylinder release. You got the key that comes with your revolver. You put it in, turn it, and it locks it, renders it inoperable. Put it in there, turn it back, show it's unloaded before I do this. So there you go.
There were complaints that the lock would cause the gun to lock up without being locked after using higher pressure loads, and there are now fixes on the market to get rid of the lock and fill the hole. In general, though, this really hasn't affected the performance of the 686, just Smith & Wesson's reputation. And even though it's been nearly 2 decades and a couple ownership groups ago, people still hold this agreement against Smith & Wesson like they hold Bill Ruger's assault weapon ban and capitulation against Ruger. Now that we have some history out of the way, what do I think of my 686-6? It has a 4-inch barrel, and I got this because I like my other 4-inch revolvers. The fit and finish are heads above both the GP100 and King Cobra. The adjustable sights are on, out of the box, as I did well from 7 and 10 yards at the indoor range, and I did alright from 25 yards outdoors. I don't shoot this as well as the King Cobra, but I did slightly better than I did with my Ruger GP100, and I will do a side-by-side comparison of the 686 and GP100 in the near future. Although I don't have enough rounds to this to judge reliability, it has fired all the 38 Special and 357 Magnum I put through it, around a couple hundred rounds each, so it's already far ahead of the Colt. Although this is a Hillary hole version of the 686, I'm happy to have this in my collection as I know it'll never lose value and it'll likely never let me down. Please be aware where your elected officials and the groups that claim to represent you stand on the Second Amendment. Please join the GOA, the largest no-compromise Second Amendment organization, and click on the link below for a discount on a membership. If you like my content, please check out my other videos, like, share, and subscribe. Also, please check out my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and who I support on Patreon. Thank you for watching, and as always, have a great day.